Hello and welcome to a video covering the latest entry into the Torchlight series, Torchlight Infinite, set 200 years after the second game in the series, Torchlight 2. Torchlight Infinite is an upcoming free-to-play action RPG that will be cross-platform for both mobile and PC. In this video I'll be covering my first impressions and what this game has to offer. This video was created in partnership with Torchlight Infinite, however the developers did want me to share my honest opinions only. Whenever you're ready, grab your cup of tea, sit back, relax, and enjoy. In Torchlight Infinite, you can pick from 4 main characters that each have their unique mechanics, traits, and more. Rahan is the melee-based class that when dealing or taking damage gains rage, which increases his damage and attack speed. At maximum rage, he's able to enter a sort of berserk, allowing him to deal out even more damage. Carino is a range-based class where ammo, his special, enhances his skills. We then have Gemma, who has a sort of special charge-up boom that can be fire or ice that goes off automatically every time you reach 100% charge. This seems like a really strong AoE hero, and I've tried around a little bit and it's a really fun class to play. Now while I've played with the other classes, I personally ended up picking Yuga as my first personal character because he just seemed like the right wizardy class to play, and he also has a special buff that buffs himself within a certain area of effect, a sort of ring that empowers your character. After creating your first character and picking a name, you enter the world of Torchlight Infinite. You start with an intuitive and easy to follow tutorial. Right after this tutorial, you get to start with the core leveling process, which is the campaign. Currently it consists of 3 chapters, which might not seem like much, but it definitely takes some time to go through each of them. After completing chapter 3, you unlock the Netherrealm game mode, which I'll be covering later in this video. The campaign is straightforward and easy to follow even if you've never played a video game before. You collect your quests in town and continue through the map to take down monsters and bosses. When I say it's simple to understand, I really mean it. The campaign is thought out well and going through levels and quests feels seamless. Usually when the game wants you to go back to town to collect a reward, it will purposely place a waypoint at the end of the quest or boss fight so that you can return to town. This isn't necessary though, as you can teleport around the map at will. The map sections are connected by waypoints that you unlock by coming into close proximity to said waypoints. Now while there are waypoints and the general gameplay flow of the game is smooth, not all maps are linear. There are plenty of dead ends despite a glowy arrow trying to help you in the right direction. You definitely need to be paying attention to progress through some of the maps, especially since the map has an interactable environment. There are plenty of breakables to find or destructibles that can damage and slow you around the world, adding some more life to some of the maps. In some cases it requires you to dash out of them because if you're getting cornered by a group of mobs you will get clapped. Speaking of mobs, let's talk about combat. You start out each character with a basic attack skill and a healing skill, which is your potion. But you do get the opportunity to unlock your other skill slots and skills reasonably fast. Then once you have your basic set of skills, more can be unlocked and modified by leveling and unlocking them, or getting them from the skill shop, which doesn't seem to have a currency by the way. I'll get into some more detail about the skill tree system later on in this video. Now you might be thinking, well with 1 or 2 skills the combat can't possibly be fun straight away, right? Well, you'd be wrong. This game does not hold back. You get to fight an interesting array of bosses with very different mechanics pretty much straight away, and I generally think they nailed the traditional hack and slash ARPG gameplay in this one. The combat feels satisfying and the visual feedback you get from your abilities is colourful and pleasant to look at, something I feel is a very important aspect of ARPG games. To add to this, the game sounds of explosives, hits and attacks are crisp and fitting. Take a listen to this part of one of the early boss fights. Most of these boss fights seem to be part of the story or have some kind of cutscene, which are a nice touch. Although in the current version it doesn't seem like the voice lines have been added to the cutscenes just yet. With audio, I can definitely see these cutscenes adding a lot to the gameplay experience, especially if you care about lore and the game's story. Now you might have noticed throughout this video that there's plenty of loot drops on the floor, and if there's one thing an ARPG needs, it's loot upon loot. Gosh, that sound is so satisfying. Items can be found in different tiers ranging from common to legendary. Rare and legendary loot need to be identified, and this can easily be done per item but also at mass using the identify option. With so much loot dropping on the floor, you'd hope there's a good inventory management system in place, and thankfully there is. You can easily sort or even destroy your items of a certain tier if needed, and it's really convenient to use. Without a system like this in place, I can either see a game becoming tedious really fast, or you becoming very selective about what you pick up. This game also has a really simple way of telling you if an item is better or not when found based on damage or survivability, allowing you to easily modify your build. You can also trade in gear for flame dust, which is used for enchanting and upgrading weapons, so it might be worth bringing some of that gear back to town. Now, the only thing I found somewhat troublesome is that your interface can get a little bit filled up when leveling up. Although this interface can be hidden when playing, it does allow you to quickly tap to level up your skills once possible mid-combat. When you're starting out, you level your skills quickly, so it's more of a tiny annoyance when you're starting out, and once you get a little bit further in the game, it doesn't really matter as much. The larger your device is, the less issues you have with keeping this interface open, allowing you to level up your skills mid-boss fights. Speaking of skills, let's cover those. In Torchlight Infinite, you have your main skills and passive skills known as auras. These skills can be modified using support skills, for example, changing your main projectile to split into 3 projectiles, or giving it poison damage, and so on. These skill and support slots require a certain amount of energy unlocked through leveling up your character. You can pick where to use the energy yourself as you wish. You obtain skills by completing quests and leveling up your character as well. The same can be said about your talents, or easier said, character stat buffs. Talents allow your character to gain more and more power as you level up, and the fantastic thing is that you can respec all of your talents at any point in time until level 70. The major talents, of which you also unlock more by leveling, can always be changed to fit whatever build you're using. This is great because it allows you to change up things as it doesn't require any currency. To reset your stats in most other ARPG games, you usually require some kind of scroll, orb, or stat reset book. I'd say the skill and talent system are really straightforward and easy to understand, which is probably what the developers were going for, but it does get a little bit more confusing if you're new to ARPGs, as there's also boons and packs with pack spirits. What it comes down to is that you're able to craft a variety of different builds and change the way you like to play more and more the higher level your character is. If you've played ARPGs in the past though, I don't see you getting overwhelmed very easily. Now, early on in the video I mentioned the Netherrealm, which is unlocked after you complete 3 full chapters, and this is a sort of endgame content for players to min-max their stats, and it can become incredibly difficult. These endgame maps, known as planes, drop a variety of good gear, including exclusive drops, and these can be modified by using things like prisms and map affixes. In these maps, you'll find stronger mobs alongside challenge shrines like the Trial of Might or the Trial of God of War, which requires you to kill as many monsters as you can in a short time frame for a bunch of loot. Occasionally when doing these levels, you'll find a treasure chest that doesn't feel like being opened and wants to fight back. Now, while each of these maps have a mini boss of their own, to reach the plane bosses, you're going to need to collect attention points by completing these maps in a certain region. Each time you kill the final boss of a certain region, known as the plane boss, the game will automatically increase in difficulty. And they seriously scale in difficulty. One of the characters on my early access account was boosted, and I basically could not get past any of the hardest stage 6 levels. The trash mobs simply annihilated me. Apart from the plane bosses that increase in difficulty, there's a final endgame boss which can be challenged after collecting 35 cinders from the plane bosses, known as the Traveler. I can only wonder what it must be like to fight this final boss. As an ARPG fan, I generally like this game, and it does seem promising. For what is currently a beta, I've not encountered any bugs apart from a frame drop here and there, and the occasional 1-second server disconnect. Probably due to the fact I'm not from the US, and this is a temporary game version with a server located there. The game itself feels really solid, and I'm glad the developers decided to go with a free-to-play game of which all content is accessible by any player without having to pay anything. The only microtransactions that are planned are skins and cosmetics and pets that give like very minor stat buffs. In my eyes, I don't think this is a big deal at all, especially if you consider this game is single player, at least for now. And I don't think you'll care about this. Like, for example, if you were to get 1% more damage from a pet, you might only care about that if you're a high score fanatic, which is a fair reasoning, but for most players, the core gameplay experience won't change and it won't matter to you. If you've become interested in Torchlight Infinite after watching this video, consider checking out the link in the description below so that you too can test this game in the current closed beta. It's worth noting that the closed beta is region locked to the following countries on screen. I'd like to point out once more that this video was created in partnership with Torchlight Infinite, and with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed the video and found it interesting, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.